Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
All right, already. Welcome everybody to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. As usual, I am your host, Duck, and today is wrong side Photoshop. All right, Alan's been having some issues. Oh, looks like he's got the issues resolved. Awesome. All right. Hey, we got you back, and it looks like you got audio now. Awesome, awesome. I hope everybody had a good week, especially a good weekend. Um, it's been a little bit cooler now, so hopefully that's a reprieve from the hot sweltering days that we had previously. So, I was kind of hoping that Bill would show up, um, because what I want to do is I want to kind of piggyback a little bit on what we did. Was it last week? Yeah, last week when we were doing the thing with the blurring the background and things like that. Um,
I was hoping you were going to do that in Photoshop. You do that in Photoshop?
yeah, so I'm going to do, and I'm going to actually kick it up a notch. So I've been working on. I think I may have mentioned that my wife wants me to get into doing more portrait work. And I think this coming year is going to be the year for me, simply because my oldest grandson is entering into high school, and he's very involved. He's very athletic. He loves sports, and he wants to see how he does with football of all things. Now, with the last name Unitas, you think I'd be all about football, but young kids in football, I've heard way too many cases of kids getting hurt, concussions. Simply because they think they're invulnerable, and the little bit of padding and the helmets that they put on is going to protect them from everything, and so they go headstrong, and of course that's when mistakes happen and accidents happen, and nobody wants to see a young kid get hurt like that, let alone your own grandson. So anyway, I have mixed feelings about it, but he wants to give it a try. What's that?
It's the age group.
It is.
It's the age group thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So all you can do is kind of, guide them, support them, things like that. But I figure him being involved in sports, hopefully it'll give me some access to some of the other students and their parents who may be interested in doing some sports portraits for their kids. And eventually what I want to do is I want to get into doing some senior high school photography, things like that, family photography. So anyway, in anticipation of him getting it, well, he's already started, but it's just all the preliminary, getting used to kind of things. So in anticipation of him going into sports, I've been working on some Photoshop templates geared specifically for the athletes, in order to present a nice product for the parents that they can buy. Um, and I wanted to kind of do something like this, but I know a lot of you aren't into that kind of photography, so it'd probably be a waste of your time listening to drone on about these. So I figure we'll do something similar but fun. All right. So what I have, let me switch. Let me go ahead and share screen. All right. Everybody see that okay? All right. So I came up with, and this is just a generic stock photo that I found in a stock website I figure, I'll use it as a placeholder until I can get my grandson to spend more than a few minutes standing still for me to capture him. So anyway, I came up with these templates that are fully customizable. And I have this one, I have this one, and I have this one. All right. And the nice thing is that because they are fully customizable, I can change the names, I can change the colors, and things like that. So, for example, in this particular case, I just wanted to kind of display um, a blue theme, you know. So, depending on what the school colors are, you can match the theme to the school colors. So, for example, if I wanted to, all right, I would create. I have this little sample square that what we can do is we can change the color. All right. All right. Wait a minute. I thought I had. Oh, here it is. Okay. I can change the color to pretty much anything I want. Let's say I wanted to change to a green color. Say that the school colors are some kind of green. Actually, let's find a nicer green than that one. All right, here we go. Nice, vibrant. Let's give it, some saturation. Okay. So we have this green. All right. And what I can do now is I can go down the line and say, okay, for this, I'm going to go ahead and sample that green. All right. And for the kind of like the texture behind the student, I can go ahead and sample that green and, of course, make maybe the saturation comes down a little bit and the brightness gets a little bit brighter but still within the green family. And of course, imagine that the student would be in a green jersey and all that good stuff. So all of these things can be modified accordingly. And I did the same thing pretty much with all of these. All of these colors are modifiable, and of course the names can be changed, and the jersey numbers can be changed, and the whole 9 yards. Okay, so if you guys are interested in learning how to do something like this, let me know, and I'll walk through a little bit more of detail on how to do this type of work. Okay.
Duck,
Yeah.
let me tell you two reasons I'm interested.
Okay.
I have a client, a web client in Chicago, and his main business is heavy equipment rentals, construction equipment.
Okay.
And that was my secondary thought, because I've just been talking to him about ways we're redoing his website, and this might be he wants to start selling some of his used equipment. This kind of popped into my mind. But more importantly, that same guy has a side. He is a coach of a junior high, I believe it's junior high basketball for his kids. And he's really into it. And the other thing he did was he created an application and a website it's called 10,000 Shots.
Okay.
So the idea is these kids have a challenge every year and they take 10,000 basketball shots,
Nice.
And because they've proven that if you take more shots, you're going to be a better player.
Right.
Anyway, and watching that, it just made me think that there's a nifty little market right there. I mean, what you're thinking of, but Little Leagues, all we got to do is find a basketball kid.
Yeah. Well,
and
yeah, here I'm obviously I just picked a random
Right.
sports photo, but these are generic enough. You can use them for football, you can use them for baseball, softball, basketball, you name wrestling, karate, you name it. These are, you know, highly modifiable. So maybe we'll do that next month in the Photoshop class.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I one more question about this, and this is an off the wall question, but in my again in my website work and when I'm working with templates and that, they have a place where you can, like you did in the corner, where you have a color palette, and you
Correct.
can go in, and if you change the color of the palette in the palette area, it propagates that change all across the website, if you will. I was wondering if Photoshop has something where you propagate a change across the layers.
I wish I haven't. I don't know of one.
Yeah,
um, that would be nice. You know, that
yeah,
would be nice. But off the top of my head, I can't think of one.
okay.
Um, but you know what? I'm going to research it and see, because that would be so cool if you could just click on one little, you know, swash, and it just goes right through the whole thing. So
Well, what made me think of it is I know that Adobe has been in the web building business, and some of
yes,
that stuff behind the scenes is HTML. And anyway, it's kind of what
yes,
I was
yes,
wondering. So,
yeah, yeah. You never know. All right. Okay. So we're not going to get as detailed into this. We are going to touch on some things. All right. Um, Basically, I'm just looking at a ways where you can just kind of enhance your presentation um, of an object. And let me go ahead and close these up. Save yes. Save yes. I'll save yes for now. I'll fix it later. All right. And what I did is, well, let me go to collections. All right. And what I did is, if you remember, I pulled one of the car photos from this car show that I went to a few months back. So what I did is I picked this one here um, for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, it's nicely isolated. It has fewer distractions in the background, and um, you know, it's got a nice 3/4 view that presents really, really well. And more importantly, I left quite a bit of, you know, empty space around it that allows me to. All right, why is this thing in the way here? All right, so we have all this empty space, top, bottom, left, and right, to really do some funky stuff with. And the end result is going to be this. All right. Now, obviously, I kind of work this to fit more of a nostalgic feel. But if we really think about it, anytime we go to a car show, it's typically antique cars. So obviously, we can, you know, play around with the how you treat the background. You know, in this case, I kind of gave it a vintage, you know, old school photography vibe. So, but there's no reason why you can't give it like a 70s look for a 70s hot rod car, you know. But anyway, this is going to be the goal of today's session. Okay. All right. So we're going to start off with our basic image. All right. And if you see here, oh, wrong one. Like I tell you guys all the time, my workflow, I always start in Lightroom, do, you know, a lot of the settings in Lightroom before I go ahead and export to Photoshop, rather than exporting to Photoshop and then going back into camera raw and bouncing around that way. You know, it makes no sense. All right. So for those of you who do not necessarily use Lightroom all the time, and you go ahead and open up your image straight into Photoshop, it will open up into Adobe Camera Raw. You just basically, like I tell you guys, I normalize the image, okay, in preparation of doing my edits. So in this particular case, I really didn't do much. I brought down the highlights. I opened up the shadows, okay? As a matter of fact, here's what the image looked like before. You can see how it's kind of very bright, especially in the sky area. So I just basically brought down the brightness and just opened up the shadows just a touch, and added some dehaze, and I brought the vibrance down. All right. Now, I didn't need to do anything with vibrance because, as you can tell, my goal is to wash out the background and strip it of all color and add my own color in. Okay. So any color adjustments I make in Lightroom is pretty much going to be what is affecting the car. And the car is a black and white car, or black and silver car. So there's really not much color there. In the original, there is a bit of a green color cast. All right. That if we wanted to, you know, we could go into our color mixer, all right, and the saturation, we bring the saturation of the green down, okay, maybe even some of the yellow, okay, and you can see that right here in the door, it just kind of reduces that down, you know, but it wasn't that big an issue. I didn't see it as that big an issue to begin with. So I really didn't, you know, worry about it too much. Okay. So, but we'll do it. Every image obviously is going to be different. If you're photographing a car that has color to it, you know, a yellow car or a red car or whatever, obviously you're going to need to approach that accordingly. All right. In this case, I got lucky. It's a black car. I can really desaturate the hell out of it, and it's not going to do anything. Okay. There is some blue being reflected, you know, in the silver, but very, very little because the sky was overcast. Had the sky not been as overcast, we would have seen a lot of blue influence in the highlight areas of the car. All right. So that's something else to consider. All right. And that's pretty much all I did to this photo in preparation. Okay. Everything else we're just going to handle in Photoshop. Okay. All right. So right click and export, or no, I'm sorry. Right click, edit in Adobe Photoshop. And what that'll do is it'll take, oh, did I freeze up? Yeah. It'll take all the settings that I applied in Lightroom and export the image into Photoshop with those settings applied. And you can see the green and the yellow has been desaturated, and we're pretty much good to go. Okay. Simple enough, right? No questions? Okay. Max, if at any point you get lost or need something explained, don't be shy. Just holler it out, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, because we are going to treat the background different than our subject, we need to take the two and we need to separate them. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my background layer and I am going to go ahead and duplicate that layer. Okay. And we'll name this car just so we differentiate it. Okay. And we need to extract the car from the background. So one thing that we can do is we can utilize some of the Photoshop's AI abilities, okay? And you can see that I have the object selection tool. Let me go ahead. Object selection tool, okay? And if I hover over certain aspects, the software can kind of sort of figure out to a certain extent. It's not perfect, but it'll get us there. So we can see that if I click on this, it pretty much does a fairly decent job of selecting the car, until, of course, we zoom in and we realize that it missed a lot of parts. Okay. Oops, there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my lasso tool. Okay. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that it is on the add. All right. Usually by default, it may be in the lasso tool up here in the upper left-hand corner. Make sure it's on that double square that is the solid white. Okay. So that means that anything I select is going to be added to the selection that's already been made. Okay. One trick you need to understand is if you press and hold the Alt or Option key, all right, let's see if we can see this. You'll notice that by default, it has the plus symbol. As soon as I press and hold the Alt or the Option key, it's going to change to a negative. All right, means that instead of adding to, we will be removing from the mask. Okay, make sense? All right, that allows us to really just come along here and say, okay, well, there's this little stuff that's kind of sticking out. Press and hold. All right, and here we have a section that is missing. All right, we'll be adding it. All right, and what we're going to do is we're just going to come along. And this is a little bit tedious, but it needs to be done in order to create a really good selection. You want a good selection, all right? Now, as we know that the auto selection tool or the AI tool is not that great yet, okay? Obviously, it needs a lot of work, all right? So you're going to go around and you're going to take your time cleaning up this selection, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making a mask from this selection. All right, we got a whole section of tire that's missing here. All right, we're going to remove that. I'm going to add that. All right, I'm not going to bore you guys too much with this, because obviously, you know, we'll spend way too much time on cleaning this up. Okay. Ooh, terrible. Look at that. All right, but we are going to clean up some of these big areas. All right, and oh, here's a whole section of tire that got missed. All right, here. Part of the fender. All right, and I noticed that it kind of grabbed some of the car behind. Just it had trouble figuring out what car was what. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and clean this up and remove all of this. All right, when you do retouching as a business, this is where you earn your money, because this can be kind of labor intensive and time consuming. All right. All right, if you notice, I have my Alt Option key selected in order to remove these sections from the selection. All right. Now this thing has a hood ornament that we want to keep. All right, that was not selected. So we're going to need to add that selection in somehow into our, whatchamacallit, into our image. Okay. All right. Oh, totally missed out this headlamp here. All right. Okay. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. Control minus.
Am I unmuted?
Looks like it missed a whole section here. A windshield. Holy cow. All right. All right. Good enough for now. Oh, let's remove this here. Okay. All right. Obviously, I'm not going to go overly crazy on cleaning this up. Otherwise, we'll be here forever, and you guys don't want to be watching me do this all night, right? Okay. But keep in mind, you want to take your time creating the mask, all right? So once we have the mask selected, we're going to go ahead and click on the mask tool, all right, right down here, all right, and it creates a mask. So now if I turn off the layer below, you can see that we have our car isolated, okay? Once we have that, we can go ahead and use the control command key, and if we click on that mask, all right, we get the marching ants again, all right? So let's do that again, all right, deselect. I'm going to go ahead and control click right on that mask, okay? Control click, and it brings the marching ants back, okay? I'm going to go ahead and temporarily hide that top layer and just come to the bottom layer. And what I want to do is I want to expand my selection. So we go select, modify, expand, all right? And I'm going to go about 20 pixels. So what we're doing is we're taking it from the edge of our car and expanding it in order to select some of the background area, okay? Did it expand? Select, modify, expand, go ahead, okay, there we go, okay. And now we can go ahead and tell it, edit, content aware fill, all right, content aware fill, all right, because what we want to do is we kind of want to sample the area around the car, and we want Photoshop to select the areas around the car in order to kind of encroach in. Ooh, that did a very terrible job. If you can see the preview, that's a total mess. Okay. So obviously there's limitations. All right. So let's try to figure out why did it give me such a lousy such a really bad fix here, okay? And the reason being is that we have so much going on in the background that the AI is having a hard time figuring it out, okay? We have all this high detail in the building area. We have stuff with cars, and then of course the bottom section, which is the largest area to be able to sample from, is just grass. So it looks like it grabbed a lot of the grass in order to fill that in. On the top part, that's not quite what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and remove a section of this mask. Okay. So I still have it in the add mask. All right. I usually keep it by default there because I know that at any point I can just press and hold the option bar and it's going to go ahead and use it to remove. All right. So now I selected the bottom part of the car that all the borders on grass, and I'm going to now do the same thing. Edit, content aware fill, hit OK. Use my brush to kind of select all this area down here and around. Okay. And it looks like it did a fairly decent job. All right. Now, I don't care about the center part. I just care about the edges where the car, the silhouette of the car is. Okay. So that edge that I went 20 pixels out, okay, I want that part to be filled in with the surrounding area, okay? All right, and I'm going to go ahead and before I hit apply, what I want to do is I want to output this to a duplicate layer, all right, a duplicate layer, okay? Also, if you notice, I have my sampling area set to custom. That means that I will tell Photoshop what areas, if you saw me paint in that fuchsia color, I told Photoshop what areas I want sampled for those that part of the mask, okay? But more importantly, I want to go to a duplicate layer. I don't want to go to the original layer, okay? The other thing we can do is, actually, you know what? We'll do new layer. We'll do a new layer, and I'll show you what happens here. All right, so I have new layer selected, okay? I'm kind of liking the results, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And now what we have is we have what Photoshop just did on its own layer. Okay. So now if we bring back the cutout of the car, you won't see any difference You won't see any difference, okay? But the reason I do this is because we're going to apply a blur effect. And if we don't remove the car completely, what happens is we get a halo. So that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm getting rid of the car as much as possible, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control, Command, click on that mask again to bring up my selection, okay? Once you have a mask, you can always create a selection from the mask, all right? And now I just want to work on the upper part. So I'm going to hit my Alt or Option key, and I'm just going to remove all that lower section.
Hey, Doc?
Yeah.
So it looks like you've got background copy highlighted, but are you working on the mask for car?
Oh yeah, I don't have, yeah. I was just working on the mask right now.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to select, modify, expand, 20 pixels. All right. Okay, and now, yes, Max, you are right. At this point, I want to make sure that I am on my background mask, because this is what I want to sample from. All right. And if it makes it easier to keep track, you can always just hide any of the layers above. Okay. But make sure that the background mask is selected, or the background layer is selected. Okay. And go Edit, Content Aware Fill, about a third of the way down. Brings us back to this dialog box. Okay. And it's telling me, because I have custom selected, it's telling me I have to use the sample brush to go ahead and select the area. Okay. And if you don't want to see this pop up all the time, just hit Don't Show again. But I let me do it. Yeah, you guys know. All right, and I'm just going to select the area along the top part of the car, right around here. Doesn't have to be anything, crazy or particular. All right. And then we look at the results, okay? And I'm not seeing grass, which is a good thing, because I didn't want grass on the top part of the car. It looks like it's actually sampling from the building itself. Looks like it's sampling from the wall. Oh, maybe not. Hold on. All right. And again, hold the Alt or the Option, and you can erase different parts. Okay. All right. This may work. I'm looking at the edges. All right. I'm going to go ahead, and we have a new layer. We're going to hit Apply. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're going to hit OK. Control D gets rid of the marching ants. I'm going to bring that lower one back in, and the car. All right. And if we look around the edge, looks like it missed some areas. Okay. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to blur the background. Okay. So in this case, what I might do is I might just come in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and select these two layers together. Okay. And I'm going to, let's see, merge layers. Okay. So what that does is it puts both those creations onto one layer. All right. And with that layer selected, okay, all right, we'll call it, we'll call it fix, just to have something. I'm going to go ahead and take my clone stamp tool. All right. And make sure that current and below is selected. Okay. Because I don't want to select anything above. All right. Right now I have the car on a separate layer above the current layer. I don't want to select it. So we're going to go current and below. Okay. Press and hold the Alt key. It turns the, let's see if we can zoom in. It's going to turn my cursor into a sample ring. All right. And I'm just going to go ahead and click to sample. All right. And once I have a sample, I'm going to just come over to the edge and I'm just going to go ahead. Oh, terrible. I'm going to go ahead and paint that in just to kind of get rid of that weird effect. Okay. And just keep clicking and selecting. That part looks okay. This part doesn't. So I'm going to go click here and I'm going to bring that down. All right, make sure we'll bring my opacity back up to 100. Oh, we don't want the sign. Okay. Click there. We don't want the sign. Let's get rid of the sign again. All right, I'm doing a butcher job because I'm trying to, there we go. All right, we'll bring this over here. All right, bring this down.
Duck,
Yeah,
is this the 20 pixel gap that was expanded that's you're getting rid of?
yeah, all right. So what it's doing is it didn't do a very clean when I did the content aware fill. It wasn't clean on all the edges, so I'm just kind of cleaning it up on some of these edges just so it's not as obvious. All right, we're going to blur out a lot of this so it's not that big an issue. All right, you can see it really did a lousy job there. Oh, and you know what I forgot to add to our mask? We forgot to add the hood ornament. All right. Make sure you get your hood ornament. I'm not going to go, it's too tedious right now. I'm not going to kill time by, whatchamacallit. Oops. Where's my zoom? There we go. Okay. But actually, what we could do is you use a brush, zoom, let's see, where's my brush size? We'll get a nice small size. There we go, make it smaller. All right, white as my foreground color because we're going to paint this in. All right, make sure opacity and flow is at 100%. I'm just going to go ahead and paint that in. All right, and if you, is it doing anything? Why isn't it doing anything? I'm on. There's my brush, normal, flow 100. What the heck?
Is that actually the hood ornaments, or is that just AI?
Oh, there we go. That's the hood ornament there. All right. So I just want to bring the hood ornament back in. I'm going to do a really sloppy job. You can see my circle's very sloppy. All right. But But like I said, if you want top-notch job, you're gonna have to take your time and make a nice, don't uh, obviously I'm doing this to save time. I would do a much better job of making my selections for a job. All right, and black will fix any mistakes on your mask. Okay, there we go. All right, so now we have our hood ornament back in. Okay. Okay. I'm going to take that layer that we cloned here, okay, and I'm gonna actually, let me go ahead and make a copy. All right, so I'm gonna duplicate this layer. All right, background copy. All right, that way I preserve my original just in case. All right, and then I'm gonna take this garbage stuff and I'm gonna merge it down. Control E, Command E will merge it down, okay? Or select both layers, right click, and merge layers, okay? All right, so now we have that monstrosity of a layer on its own layer, okay? All right, there's a reason for this madness. I'm going to go ahead and in the filters, all right, we're going to go filter, blur. Now, most people will go for a Gaussian blur, all right. Now, Gaussian blur is going to blur the entire image. Oh, what the hell? It's going to blur the entire image by whatever percent, okay? I don't want that kind of blur. I want something that kind of looks a little bit more natural. So things closer to the camera, I don't want as much blur, okay? Where stuff to the back, I really want to blur, all right? The Gaussian blur creates a blur globally across the entire image. That's not what I want, okay? The other thing is, if you apply a Gaussian blur, if you apply a blur effect to this layer as it is, all right, you can't undo it, all right? So as we're developing the image and you say, oh, you know what, I blurred it too much, or you know what, it needs to blur a little bit more, we want to be able to go back and change certain settings for our blur. So for that, we're going to convert this layer to a smart object, okay? So let me go ahead and change that to blur FX, okay? And we're going to, let's see, convert to smart object, all right? So on the layer, we have that layer selected, gonna right click and come down about a third of the way, convert to smart object, okay? Now, whatever we do to that, we can undo it, okay? So what we're gonna do now is we're going to apply blur, but in a very controlled way, all right? And the way we do that is go to filter, come on, filter, and instead of just going to blur, we're gonna go to the blur gallery, okay? And we're gonna pick the first one, which is field blur, okay? And this allows us to really play around with where we put the blur and how much blur we put, okay? And by default, you're going to notice that it has this pin with a circle around it, all right? And consider the circle kind of like a graph that graphs out how much blur is being applied to the area around the pin, okay? All right, so in this case, we have, by default, it puts it right in the center. But if we take that pin and we click and drag, we can move that pin anywhere we want on our image. Now, because it's only one pin, it's going to apply that blur across the board, okay? But what we want to do is we want to create additional pins, okay? So I'm going to put this way back here for the background, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to really up the blur, maybe about, 30 points, okay? Now, anywhere on my canvas, I can go ahead and, if you notice, the icon is a pin with a plus symbol. I can go ahead and drop a pin anywhere here, all right? So what I'm going to do is right in the areas around the wheel, all right, I want less blur, maybe about 8-ish. Seems good, okay? And now you'll notice that over in this area, oh, wait, go back. Where's my draw? Over in this area, we are losing that nice heavy duty blur that we put in the tree line. So we want to take that and we want to apply it here, okay? So we're going to go ahead and drop another pin, and we're going to increase to, what was it, about 30, right? We can always go here, and yeah, it was about 30. All right. And that looks pretty darn good, okay? And if we want this transition here, okay, we're going from a blur of 8 to a blur of about 35, okay? So maybe drop another pin and go somewhere in between, about 15, 16. That looks good, all right? That's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. All right, and let's bring in that top layer, okay? Now, we could have done it with the top layer active, all right? But if you'll notice, there is no halo around the car. Oops, what'd I do? There we go. There's no halo around the car, okay? Now, what would have happened? All right. Let me go ahead and turn this off. I have this layer here. Let's go ahead and create a duplicate layer. All right. We'll call it oops. All right. Just so you know. Okay. We're going to make that active. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the isolated car, and just to facilitate things, let's go filter, blur gallery, field blur. I'm going to do it really, really quick. All right. Just so that we can kind of see. All right, bring this down, this really up there. Okay. Now, I want you to pay close attention where the blur is the greatest, and that's on the upper part of the car. Okay, gonna hit OK. All right. We have the upper part blurry, where we're gonna go ahead and unhide our car. And you're gonna notice that all along the edge of the car, we have that really strange halo. Okay. And that halo is because the car was still there. It got blurred, so it expands. Anything that gets blurred expands into its neighboring pixels. The more you blur, the more it expands into its neighboring pixels and blends with the neighboring pixels. All right. And that's why we get this crazy halo effect. All right. That's why you have to kind of remove the car, all right, in order to not get that halo. Make sense now? All right. All right. So let's go ahead and get rid of that oops layer. All right. Now, because we have a smart filter for our blur gallery, at any time we can just double click here. All right, come on, double click. And we can go ahead and add more pins if we want to. All right, move pins around if we need to. All right, maybe make this a little bit more blurry, this one a little less, whatever it is, you hit OK. It updates all those settings and voila, okay? All right. Now we need to go ahead and do some additional separation between our foreground and our background, okay? So between the foreground and the background, right above our blur layer, I'm going to go ahead and create a curves adjustment, okay? And I'm going to go fairly extreme on this one, all right? I'm going to go ahead and really lighten up that background, okay? Now, what I want to pay particular attention to is the shadows underneath. All right, the shadows underneath. All right, because I don't want those shadows to lighten up, because then it gets that really weird, funky cutout look. All right, we're altering it, but we're trying not to give it too much of a cutout look. All right. So we're going to keep the shadows in there. Okay. And if you want, maybe even darken the shadows down a little bit. Okay. But we're going to pay in particular attention to our background. Okay. I don't want the sky to blow out either, so I have to be careful with that. Okay. But I want a very bright background. All right, that's looking pretty good. The next thing I want to do is I want to remove all the color and put in my own color. All right. So for that, we are going to use a hue, saturation, brightness layer. Okay. Hue, saturation, brightness. Okay. Now, if we bring the saturation all the way down, you can see that it removes all the color from the background. All right. But we want to kind of give it a sepia tone. All right. So we're going to introduce our own color. All right. And for that, what we're going to do is we're going to click on this little button here that says colorize. All right. And we colorize. And by default, it defaults to obviously the red color, because that's the first color in the hue slider. Okay. And you can see we have some saturation back in. All right, now, because we clicked on the colorized, we desaturated the original image. That desaturation has already happened. So what we're now doing is we're adding color to the desaturated image, okay? All right, so what we want to do is we want to find kind of a brownish color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the saturation up. And you'll notice as we go through the hues, it goes reds to yellows to greens to cyans, blues, purples, and back to reds, okay? We want something in the browns, all right? And hopefully by now you'll realize that brown's not really a natural color. There is no brown color. What we label brown is actually a dark, dirty orange. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to find something in that orange slice of color. All right. And that's why I brought the saturation up, because it's very easy to see when you cross over into greens or when you don't go far enough and you're still in the reds. All right. So we want to kind of get to that point where it's just starting to turn green and bring it back. All right. Because what we're going to do is we're going to bring our saturation down, and we're going to bring the brightness down just a touch. All right. We don't want to make it too dark. Again, we have to control that balance so it's, you know, we have this nice believable effect with the saturation and the luminosity of our background. Okay. The other thing is I'm going to add that very typical white vignette that is reminiscent of an old school photo. All right. So right now I'm just looking at the color behind the car. All right. And that looks pretty darn good to me. I kind of like that. Salt and pepper to taste. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit here. Okay. I'm going to add, let me zoom in. All right. If your color is a little funky, you can do additional manipulation by going back down one layer to your curves adjustment. All right, remember the curves adjustment kind of adjusts the luminosity of our background. We made it very bright, but we also have the RGB here. All right, if we click on that, we can go to the individual channels. All right, so we can say, okay, you know, maybe we want to reduce the blue. All right, if we reduce blue, what are we doing? We are adding yellow. Okay, so maybe add a little bit of yellow there, and maybe red, we will add a little bit of red. All right, so you can fine tune your color if the hue, saturation, luminance layer does not get you where you want. Okay, all right. Any questions so far? I know I'm covering quite a bit. All right, but the curves adjustment layer, you've seen me use this all the time. You should be very familiar with it. Okay. All right. Here we're just kind of introducing the hue, saturation, luminance to get a particular result. All right. Let me go back out. All right. Now we want to add the vignette. So what I want to do is I want to add brightness so that it almost goes white on the edges. All right. Not quite solid white, but we want to really, really brighten it up. All right. So above our hue, saturation, luminance layer, I'm going to add another curves adjustment. Okay. And most people will grab it by the center and then drag it up. Okay. But you notice what it's doing is it's brightening up the midtones the most here, right? But leaving all the dark areas pretty much untouched. All right. That's not what we want. We want to lift all our values brighter. All right. So I'm going to go all the way here to the very tippy corner, and I'm going to grab that and bring it up. So now as we bring this up, you'll notice that all our dark tones are brightening up. All right. And I'm going to push this to an extreme level. All right. Now, this is where you have to pre-visualize. All right. Because what I'm doing here is this is a global effect that I am on the next step change to a local effect. Okay. But what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to see how it affects my edges. I'm only concerned about the edges. We're going to fix the center later. I just want to pay attention to what it's doing on the edges. And that looks pretty darn good. But the nice thing is we can always come back and change it afterwards. Okay. All right. Now we are on the mask. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and pick my brush. All right. And my brushes. Oh, what happened here? And my brushes, let's go. I'm going to pick a nice soft round brush. I'm going to go ahead and make it really, really large. Okay. You want to make sure that black is your foreground color. All right. Here I have white as my foreground color, black. The letter D will reset if you have any other colors. All right. And X will toggle between, will toggle between these two. All right. See how it toggles? We want black as our foreground color. Okay. And make sure you're on the mask. All right. You know you're on the mask when there's a white border around the mask icon. All right. And we're just going to go ahead and paint our center back in. Okay. How much you paint in is entirely up to you. All right. And that looks a little bit saturated. So I'm going to come back to my saturation layer and I'm going to go ahead and adjust that down. That looks better. There we go. All right. And that's pretty much it for the car. Now, you can do additional things. One thing that I did not do, if we look closely, there are little, dings and paint scratches. If you want to go ahead and fix all that, feel free, grab your spot healing brush, go to the car layer and fix all these things to your heart's content. All right. I'm not going to dwell too much. You guys should know how to do that by now. There's also reflections on the side of the car. This salt and pepper to taste. If you want to spend some time to remove those distractions, feel free. Whatever tool works best for you. All right. I heard a beep. What happened? Did we lose somebody? No? All right. If you want to get rid of all these distractions, feel free. I'm not going to, obviously, I'm not going to worry about it right now. Okay? All right.
But on the reflections,
Yep.
What tool are you using? Are you still using the stamp
I was using the spot healing brush.
spot
All
healing?
right.
Okay.
But you have to be careful because with larger areas, it can get very muddy very quickly. All right. You can use the clone stamp tool. You can use um, the AI remove tool. All right.
Oh,
Any of those tools to remove distractions you can use. All right. Um, it's whatever works best for you for your given situation. Okay. All right. So, like in this case, we can maybe make a selection. All right. And let's go generate, and give it a second. It's going to send it up to the cloud, use the AI tools, and it did a fairly decent job. That's even better. That's fairly terrible on the handle. All right, that's probably the best. I'm going to go ahead and keep that one. And then, of course, we have issues with this. So I might use something like um, the patch tool. Let's see how that works. Oh, yeah. All right. There we go. Patch tool. Sample all layers. Oh, it's all right. I don't want to merge it down. All right, never mind. Let's just use clone. All right. Oh, I see what it's, no. That's it. Sample all layers. There we go. Why isn't it not sampling all layers? All right. Oh, because there's a mask. Let's get rid of the mask. Delete the mask. There we go. There we go. Much better job. Okay. Control 0. All right. Before, after, before, after. Okay. So whatever tool works best. All right. Okay. So now, at this point, we can say, all right, I got the car looking the way I want. It looks old timey. Let's now create a nice, frame or border or mat, whatever you want to do. Okay. So at this point, what we're going to do is we need to add something around it. Okay. And for that, we need to expand our canvas. All right. So we're going to, let's see, image, canvas size. All right. And you can see, because I'm working I'm working with the full resolution image, you'll notice that my canvas size is fairly large, 23 by 15. Okay. Now, if you want, you can do yourself some math and say, okay, oops. All right. I want to add 4 inches to the left and right, and 4 inches, top and bottom. Okay. So we can go plus 4, tab over to here, and oh, there we go. Sorry, Bob. All right.
What kind of relation?
we're going to go to the end here. We're going to go +4, all right, and hit enter. And it adds to our canvas, all right? Now, if you notice that it's adding empty pixels, okay? It's basically adding empty pixels, all right? So we're gonna need to do a few things for this, all right? I'm going to go ahead and add a blank layer, okay? And it puts it at the very top because we're at the top of our stack, but that's okay. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to give that a fill. So edit, fill, all right? And I'm just going to go ahead and fill it up with 50% gray, okay? And what I want to do is I want to give it a little bit of texture, all right? So I'm going to go to filter, noise, add noise, all right? And you want to make sure that it's on Gaussian monochromatic, all right? So Gaussian and monochromatic. If you don't have monochromatic, it gives you all these, you know, colorized pixels. We don't want that, okay? We want a nice black and white pixel. The more you do, the more contrast you have with the noise, all right? The less your amount, the more gray is introduced into the pixels, okay? So we don't need too heavy, right? And you can see if we look off to the side here, we can see how it's affecting our solid color. All right, we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And what I want to do is I want to apply just a little bit of a blur. So we're going to go filter, blur, and in this case, we are going to do the Gaussian blur. And just a tiny little bit, I'm going to add about 2 pixels worth. All right, because remember, this is very fine grain. All right, we're going to hit OK. If you don't want fine grain, we could always take this and we can make the image bigger, and you can see it makes the grain larger. All right. So again, salt and pepper to taste. Minus, all right, Control Z brings it back. All right. And that looks good to me. All right. We need to drag that all the way to the bottom. All right, and oh, what happened? What? Oh, okay. Ha ha ha. Yes, I forgot that step. Okay. Here I put it below the car. All right, and you can see we can see the background. I dropped it below our blur layer. All right, and all that nice texture, that the great texture that we just created, suddenly disappeared. Okay, why? That's because we have these layers above, all right, that one stripped out, well, first of all, brightened everything up, stripped the color out, and then added a sepia tone. Okay, remember that? So that is affecting everything below those layers, including the one that we just moved in. So what we need to do is we need to change that so that these adjustment layers are not affecting that nice border that we created. So we have to come back up here and we need to clip, all right? We need to clip to the blur layer, all right? So one way you can do it is you can open up the Properties tab, and right here, this little icon, click on that, And what it does is you'll notice that it clips it to the layer below. All right, so we take that curves adjustment and it's clipped to the layer below. Okay, the other way you can do it is when you have your layer selected that you want to clip, press and hold the Alt or Option and hover in between the two layers. And then once you see the icon change, go ahead and click and it'll lock it down. And then click, it'll lock it down. Okay. Now, all those 3 adjustment layers that modified our color and gave us that nice vignette is now linked specifically to that blur effects layer. All right. And now we get our border back. Okay. If you want, we could even take that, click on the first one, shift click on the blur effects, and Control Command G will group it into a layer. All right. And we can rename that to background. All right. Did I lose anybody on all those shenanigans? Yes,
You
no?
didn't lose me, but I had to tell you, between all the layers, the very, very last part, I would need a lot of practice on that. Now in Lightroom, there is something similar to that. Is there? Is there not? It's not as sharp, but it's in Lightroom.
Uh, uh, Similar to what?
Well, with um, the last part you just did, the gray part, the frame,
Adding a border.
adding a frame or border or frame. Is that frame and border are two different things?
Yes, a frame and a border. A border basically creates a rule around the perimeter of your image, and
Hmm.
you're limited as to what you can do within Lightroom. This you have a little bit more flexibility because with this, all right, we can take. Actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and I'm going to add the car into it, and we'll just rename that car. There we go. All right, because now I can take this and I can move this anywhere within the frame. So if I want,
Hmm.
maybe something that's a little heavier on the bottom than, the top and 2 sides, I can move my image within that frame. All right. A border will travel with that image. And I'll actually show you because we're going to be adding a border to our image. Okay. All right. All right. Where are we? Okay. One thing that you'll notice is that if we zoom in to our image, there's a blur. Okay. And that blur is being caused by our smart filter. Okay. Now, previously, we weren't able to see that blur on the edge because it was on the edge. All that blur fell outside of the edge and was invisible. All right. So now we need to kind of fix that. All right. So how can we do that? Well, we can go ahead and let's see. We're going to need to disable the blur. All right. We're going to all right. See how when you disable the blur, all we did is we took the eyeball off and on. Okay. Once we have the blur off, I can control click on that layer and we get the marching ants, right? We can come back to the mask for our smart filter, all right? So if you turn our smart filter back on, we get that blur edge, right? Black is my foreground color. I'm going to Alt Delete, okay? And it gets rid of the inside, but what I want to do is I want to invert that. So Control I will invert it. Oh, wait a minute. Got to make sure we get the marching ants off first. Control D and Control I. And now we have gotten rid of that blurring effect. Okay? Make sense? All right.
That didn't make sense at all to me.
What's that?
I guess and I thought you were going to go do something else, but I lost it on that one. So
Oh.
I'll have to watch a couple more times.
Yeah. The other way, it tends to be a little bit more destructive. We could have rasterized that layer. And what that means is you bake in that blur effect. All right. And then when you put in your marching ants around it, you invert the mask and you delete everything outside. But that's a little convoluted and, kind of gets rid of the blur, the ability to go back and edit your blur. Okay. All right. We're good. All right. Now we want to create some separation. All right. If we double click on our layer, the blur effects layer, okay, not in the smart filters part, but in the actual where the name is right here in this open area, you double click, brings up this layer style. We've seen this before. We're going to do a few things here. Okay. First thing is we're going to add a drop shadow. All right. And you can see whatever the default one is, it applied it. It's a little on the heavy side. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit. So select, make sure that the drop shadow is selected. Okay. And we have the ability to control, how opaque, the distance, how big. All right. This will give you the illusion of how high off that mat is the photo. All right. So, and then the spread is how sharp the edge or how blurry the edge. Okay. And then the size is how much diffusion. All right. So we want a nice natural looking shadow. All right. That kind of helps separate the image. Okay. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to add a stroke. All right. A stroke is that border. All right. It's not a frame. It's kind of like a border around the image. Okay. And in this case, I'm going to select, something from the image that's sepia tone. Okay. Fairly dark. All right. And because it's a high resolution image, about 20 pixels, looks about good. All right. And if we click off, there we go. So what that does, it just gives us a subtle separation from that gray background. All right. Now, the nice thing about that gray background is you can colorize it as well. Okay. But we're just going to, stick with this. All right. We're going to go to let's rename this frame. All right. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to double click on that open area to bring up the layer style for the frame. And for this, I think I'm going to add a little bit of a bevel to the corner, okay, or to the edges. All right, and size, we're going to increase the size. All right, let's see. I want maybe a chiseled bevel. Okay, maybe about 20 pixels. All right, the depth is going to kind of like, it plays around with the contrast of shadow and light. Okay, you see the light edge over here and the dark edge here, and it's not very light here. But all it does is the depth manipulates the contrast to give the impression that it's a deeper cut in relation to, you know, anything else. Okay. Size, softness. Softness is that chisel, you know, it just kind of looks, makes it round over. And I think that's about it for that. Okay. Again, if you want to color tone your background, you're more than welcome to. Simply add a hue saturation layer. You'll want to make sure you clip it. All right. Colorize and, you know, choose your heart's content as to what color you want. Okay. So let's make it, you know. All right. Everybody with me so far? Okay. All right. Last thing, maybe we'll just go right to the top. We're going to go text and let's see. This was, all right. I took a peek earlier. There's a window sticker here, or a window label. I zoomed in to find out what the model of this vehicle was because I had no clue. But it is a 1932. Oh, wait a minute. Make sure we get our hold on a second. Let's delete that for a second. Let's start again. 1932 Hupmobile. Never heard of it. Hupmobile sedan, model I226. Okay. All right. We're going to take that. We're going to drop it right below here. Centered. All right. And let's pick a nice font. Okay. When you click on your fonts, all right, by default, it's going to, oops, won't let me. Okay. It's going to open by default to your fonts. If you don't have anything here that you like to use, you can go and click on more fonts. All right. And it's going to allow you to download from the Adobe library, font library. Okay. So what we want, all right, you can search by different properties of fonts, serif, slab serif, all right, ornamental, okay, something that's friendly, something that's cursive, all right. We want to go with something that's Art Deco. I think that'll fit nice. All right, let's see. And as you hover over these, you'll notice that the text is going to change. Let's see. Kind of like that bodega. Is that the bodega one? That's kind of nice. That's definitely very Art Deco, but it's hard to read. You know, let's see where we go. Yeah, I kind of like that. Blakely or the Bodega. Let's do the Blakely. All right. Now, before I select the Blakely, you'll notice that, oops, it won't let me. Okay. Right at the beginning of Blakely, there's a little arrow. If you click on that, it lets you know that there are additional font styles available, all right, or font families available. Okay, so in this case, we got light, we got bold, and we got black. Okay, I kind of like the light. Maybe the bold, I don't know. All right, let's click on the bold. Okay, and that's it. We now have this available to us, and like anything else, we can colorize it. Let's maybe pick something from there. We're gonna, let's see, maybe bring the saturation up a little bit. Let's make it little lighter. There we go. Okay. We're going to add some effects to that. Again, double click. And we're going to add a drop shadow. Okay. And it's going to add the previous settings. Okay. And you can see that the previous settings don't quite work with this. All right. We need to tighten it up, bring the distance in a little bit, reduce the spread. All right. Reduce the size. All right. Maybe bring up the darkness. All right. Let's see. Add spread. There we go. That's looking a little bit better. All right. Salt and pepper to taste. We drop a little drop shadow, hit OK, and voila. We have a nice presentation for your photograph, really highlighting the subject. Okay. All right. We covered a lot. All right. But hopefully it wasn't it wasn't really anything too far out of your wheelhouse. So questions?
No question. No, I actually probably have a couple of questions. Yeah. Oh, you see my glassy eyes, they're like, what? I didn't lose you, but it's certainly, there is a lot there. Even changing the color of the script of a Hubmobile, changing the color, changing this. I get the script. You could easily change the style of that, but there's so much to remember. But it looks great, though. It really looks. The car looks fantastic. Never seen one before, but I really like to see one in person.
Oh, I know. That's got to be so much fun to drive. Let me tell you.
And look at 1932, just coming out of the Great Depression.
Yeah.
That is an incredible automobile.
Yeah. Well, I think this was this was not manufactured in the U.S. This is a foreign vehicle, like Hungary
Britain.
or somewhere out there. So yeah, but just think it's starting to enter World War II.
Yeah, it's almost 100 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to jump in here, Duck, because I'm born in Detroit, and that's where this car was made.
Really? I thought
Yep.
I thought this was foreign made.
Yeah, Hub Motor Car of Detroit.
Okay.
Now,
I stand corrected.
Alan, something about, since you're talking about cars, if you ever get to Detroit, they have this place called Greenfield Village.
Oh, I've been there many times.
And the Henry Ford Museum.
Yeah, I've been both places.
They probably got a Hubmobile lined up in there.
Nice.
My mother lives in let's see, near the airport. What's the name of that town? Um, Come on.
Dearborn
Anyway,
Taylor.
yeah,
Come up.
I go there every year, and
Okay.
we always stop, the Ford factory and the Ford Museum. Ford Museum, I never get tired of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Duck, just another side thing. There's a car in there, I forget the brand, but it looks just like this Hupmobile, made about the same time, ran on steam, and was capable of over 100 miles an hour.
Sheesh. Wow. Wow. That's insane. That's
Yep.
insane.
When you think about the roads back then,
Yeah. Yeah, can you imagine having steam powered cars nowadays? Nobody would have the patience to operate
No,
a steam powered car,
right, right.
you know.
I see Jay Leno has one. I've seen him a couple of times on his website,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
very entertaining. But you're right. That's how he got burned, actually, working on a steam
Yes,
car.
that's right. Yeah. He also has one of the first electric cars. And it was interesting to find out that after steam, the automotive companies were went straight into electric cars before going into combustion cars.
Wow.
It was like very, eye opening. But for
Yeah.
some reason, we kind of, obviously the uh, um, uh, battery technology was like
Oh, it's still
really
not
bad.
there.
Yeah, it's still not there, but it's amazing that that's the first thing they explored. So, all right, Max, any questions on anything?
No, thank you.
All right. As always, this is going to be uploaded to YouTube, so at any point, pull it up and you can follow along with all the steps. Okay.
You want to buy one? It's cheap, $28,000.
Oh yeah, no problem. Pocket money. I'll just dust off the lint.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And the other thing about you in this picture, the Hupmobile, you were pretty, especially, and the one you had last week when we were doing you're fortunate to get two cars that weren't jammed up against other cars.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I purposely went for all the corner
Yeah,
cars. Um, they have pretty much the best position in the
yeah,
yeah. So, but you know what? If you are a car enthusiast, there is absolutely nothing stopping you from approaching the owners and saying, "Hey, I would love to set up a photo shoot with your vehicle." And then you'll have the vehicle all to yourself,
yeah.
you know? So, but hopefully this gives you uh, some ideas. Um, it really cuts down on the distraction a lot. Okay. And the thing with the frame, once you get to the part with the frame where it goes to expanding your canvas, you can put that part into an action. So by the time you get to that part, you just click on your action and it expands the canvas, drops in the color, adds the texture, and the whole 9 yards, and you're good to go.
That was something else I learned today when you were increasing the canvas size. I didn't know you could just plus
Oh, do
whatever.
math. Yes.
I've
Yes.
been doing math in my head all this time.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing you can do, let me go to edit or no, image canvas size. All right. So we have the actual size of our canvas. But another thing that you can do is you can click on relative. All right. And now it becomes, you just say, hey, I want to add 2 inches to the width, and, maybe, 4 inches to the height. And this little, excuse me, this little grid allows you to say from what point is this expansion going to occur from. All right. By default, most people will keep it in the center, but you can say, all right, if I move my point here, what it's going to do is it's going to add 2 inches to the right side and 4 inches to the bottom, and nothing to the left and top. Okay. And you can go anywhere along these 9 coordinates. Okay. But by default, most people add it equidistantly from the center. Make sense? Okay.
I did a lot of that. I used to do a lot of mirror images or math, what do you call it? Page book flip of images, cut them in half and flip them over. And
Oh,
so a
yeah.
lot of that was
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah. So, all right. I kind of like the gray map. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to mention what we got coming up. Nothing new. Same thing that we had last week. Excuse me. Milford Photo is doing a beginner's photo walk. I have 2 slots. One at, let's see. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The beginner's photo walk, 1 slot, 1:30. Excuse me. Oh, yeah. Got a frog in my throat. Okay. On September 14th, you have to go to Milford Photo on meetup.com to register for that. It's the Flash Basics. I have 2 sessions for, one at 10 and one at 12. And we're going to be doing pretty much just a strobist style setup using small strobes, speed lights. I have a speed light. I have an AD200. So nothing big and powerful. It's all very portable. It's all stuff that you can add to your outdoor lighting kit. Whether it's you're photographing people or you're photographing any other type of subject. Okay. So I got 2 sessions for that coming up. And then Robert Fiedler is working in conjunction with the Art League of New Britain. And I'm going to be doing a flash photography class working with models in a studio environment. So that's a little bit different. That's with bigger flashes, larger modifiers, and things like that. So I don't have the information on where to sign up for that just yet. As soon as Robert gives it to me, I will put it into my Learn Photography with Duck events page, and that'll direct you to that information. Okay. So anyway, that's what's coming up. Next month, I also want to do the photo hunt. If some of you may have done the photo hunt with me in the past, it's that deck of cards that I'm developing. I'm still developing. One of these days, I'll get this friggin' thing project finished. But it's a deck of cards that have prompts. You have a limited time to go out and complete the prompt, and then you come back and we all share our stories and have a good laugh at our expense. Okay, so that'll be next month. I don't know when. We'll see. But anyway, that's what's coming up. Okay. And with that, I have nothing more for you guys. All right.
Yeah.
Have
A
yourself
lot
a
of
good
info
one.
tonight. A lot of info. Gonna have to watch this one closely. I always get lost on clipping when you're clipping things together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just think of it as a paper clip to the layer below. Okay. All right, guys.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Stay safe in the meantime.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.